Well, howdy, folks, and welcome back to the Rancher Podcast. I've got a very special guest with me today, a young man who I call my brother, Calyn Halvorson. He's with us to talk about a big topic in the world of Western sports today, and that is the PBR teams. And I brought Calyn on for a few reasons. First of all, he is an athlete on a team sport. He's a college athlete here in Oklahoma, and he plays baseball, so figured he could give us a little bit of that aspect. But also, he is passionate about sports media and can talk through some of the other experiences he's had, with teams and new leagues and other things and other sports, and kind of talk about how that might translate to the PBR. So really looking forward to having you. Welcome, Calyn.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Yeah, so, I think we'll go ahead and get right into it after a quick word from our sponsors. And profitable. Visit EliteRanchConsulting.com today to learn more about how they can protect your American dream. All right, and we're back. So, Calyn, let's talk about this. PBR teams. I know a lot of people are saying this isn't going to work. There's a lot of haters out there, a lot of people these days who just, they think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think you're here to kind of bring a different perspective and talk about why the team aspect is a good thing for the PBR. But before we get into too much about it, and your opinions, let's talk about the fast facts. So this was introduced last week, and there's going to be 8 teams, right? So most of these teams are focused in the South and the East. We got Carolinas, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona. Am I missing anybody? Nashville, I guess, Tennessee.
Yeah, Carolina. You got the 2 Texas teams out there.
Yeah, so they'll have these 8 teams, and they're going to do 10 regular season events. And so they're going to have one in each of the cities that has a team, and then they're going to have 2 neutral site events. But then on top of that, they'll have a playoff that'll happen in November in Las Vegas. And, we'll get into details on more of this stuff here in a minute, but really curious to see how the playoff will work after the full season. Of course, every time these guys get on a bull, risk of injury is tough. You just got to be curious. How long could a playoff, if you will, go on? Furthermore, the PBR team series is going to be held on CBS, which is cool. They're going to stream it live on Paramount Plus, which, of course, we've seen Paramount Plus is kind of taking over the Western world. It's hosting Yellowstone 1883. That's where you can get a lot of the new shows that are Western lifestyle, but then they'll also be on the Pluto Network and CBS Sports. But closer to home, I think the season's going to be this summer, but they're going to have the rider draft in May, and the details are that each team is going to have 5 riders that compete, but there will be a 7-man roster with 3 practice riders. Calyn, I do want to get your opinion on that. I mean, how do you compare that? I mean, what are the 3 practice riders, and how are those different than the 2 alternates or the 7 starters? I mean, is there another sport that you could compare this to? I mean, is this like a NFL practice team? What do you think?
I think you can compare it to 2 different things, in my opinion. You could compare it to a practice squad, like an NFL for sure, but it also kind of gives me the vibes of the MLB whenever they had this thing called a taxi squad. And the MLB used this during the COVID season and kind of now, but it kind of died away when the minor league came back. But during the COVID year, they had the regular roster of around 30 guys, and then whenever teams decided we got hit hard by COVID, they had this taxi squad. And there was a bunch of guys on the minor league teams that were high up in the organization, but just weren't ready yet. So they had these guys just sitting back and waiting for their opportunity. But in my opinion, I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like the practice squad, like you say, but I think it's pretty close to both, which I really like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we said, I think injuries are going to be a huge factor in this, and there's a lot of folks who are saying that's probably going to be the downfall of the league is the potential for injuries. But if you got 10 guys that are going to be ready to go any given weekend, I think you're going to be fine. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I wanted to go ahead and go over the teams. So first up, we've got the Ariat Texas Rattlers, and they're going to be based in Fort Worth. And the owner is going to be the Fisher family, which I looked it up. The Fisher family are the founders of Gap Clothing. And, I was looking into it a little bit more. Gap Clothing owns Ariat, so this is a pretty good fit. The main guy in the Fisher family, they live in San Francisco. He actually owns the Oakland Athletics, so there is already a tie to a sports team there. So I think that's pretty interesting. Do you think he'll be able to bring some good team management expertise into the league?
I would say so. If he has some pretty good experience with all of that. And I mean, obviously it depends on who you coach and who you can bring in. I imagine the draft's gonna obviously kickstart it, but I imagine like in other big sports, free agency is gonna be a big thing. And these guys are going to go to different places, and it's just going to be who you can bring in and who you can persuade and just recruit in.
Yeah, well, I hate to break it to him, but I don't think the Moneyball approach is going to apply to PBR bull riding.
I don't know. You can't game that much.
There's not that many statistics out there. Either you rode the bull or you didn't, man. I mean, it's either. I mean, literally, the only thing I can think of is like, well, this guy rides a bull every time, but he only gets an average score, low 70s, versus this guy, he might put out a 90 ride and then never ride one for 10. There's not going to be much Moneyball going on, I don't think.
Unless they decide to go with size and weight and all that and see what kind of riders do this. I think I can see it getting real analytical and all that stuff, and like in years, like headed, but not right now. I don't think that's the way the cookie's going to crumble.
Yeah, bull riding's still more of an art than anything. I saw the other day on the Cowboy channel, they were talking about how I'm a huge fan of golf, and sometimes golf and the PBR, bull riding, they're similar in ways that they're not a team competition, but also somebody was talking about on the Western Sports Roundup that staying fit, exercising, these are new things to the sport. The guys who didn't used to take care of themselves, but they're becoming more and more of a professional athlete on the outside to try and keep themselves in the shape. You don't see as many cigarettes behind the chutes. I mean, JB Mooney's still ripping heaters, but besides that, it's a different world back there. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how the team aspect, if that accelerates this movement towards, more of a traditional athlete. But next up, we've got the Arizona Ridge Riders, and they're going to be based in Glendale, Arizona, and they're owned by the somewhat still mysterious Teton Ridge group. And, I've heard a lot of people talk about Thomas Tull, the guy who owns them, and, what he's up to. It's interesting. Obviously, he's a media guy. He also is a part owner of the Steelers. I'm really excited about the investments that he's made in the Western world. I know he's a good friend of Taylor Sheridan's, and of course, he talked about how Yellowstone and shows like that have gotten more people involved in the sport, kind of like Drive to Survive did with Formula One. And I think I agree with him there. But um, Teton Ridge, really cool group. If you go to their website, they still don't have a lot out there information wise as to what they are or what they're doing. But I think we're going to see this name continue to pop up all over the place. And glad they've got a team in Arizona. I think that the sport is going to continue to grow in places like Arizona as the population grows. And of course, it's always good to have teams outside of your traditional states like Texas. But that leads us to our next team, the Austin Gamblers, based in Austin, Texas. And Cal, what do you think about the fact that a city like Austin has a team?
I think it's huge for the city. Obviously, we've talked about how there's a lack of professional sports teams there. And I mean, you can obviously see that they flood money into the Texas Longhorns, and there's some rich tradition there and all that stuff, even though there has some down years. I think that the love for that team and program is huge. And I think that, I mean, like you said, the FC team there gets a big draw. So I think this would be big time to keep that Western feel. I mean, I feel like Austin kind of has that Western feel and kind of like the new school stuff. So I think it'd be really cool, really good for that city.
Yeah, the everyone knows the phrase "keep Austin weird." Well, to our new friends here in town from California and whatnot, I feel like a PBR team fits the description of weird to them. So they'll definitely be involved. Austin is an interesting city. Like you said, we're one of the largest cities in America that does not have one of the big three professional sports in town. We do have a soccer team. Those games are sold out all the time. Everyone that's here loves to, brag about being from Austin and support the teams and whatnot. So I'm not sure if the bull riding aspect will be as big of a draw as the fact that it's a new Austin team. There's people that are just going to want to be here and be a part of something because it's Austin related. So really interested in seeing how that plays out. The owner is Egon Durban, who owns Silver Lake Investments, and they had a big stake in Dell, which of course Dell's kind of the Michael Dell and his group are the people that really built this city. Durban also funds the UFC and is a big investor. He owns the parent company of the PBR along with City Football Group, which is the owner of Manchester City Football Club. So again, 3 out of 3 so far, right, Calyn, of people who own or have some type of ownership interest in some really big time, athletics groups. I mean, the Oakland A's, the Steelers, and Manchester City. I mean, Manchester City was one of the best teams in Premier League soccer not 5 years ago. I mean, this is not a small time deal. But he also has an interest in the New York City FC MLS club. So a lot of experience around here. And they won the lottery, so the Austin Gamblers are going to get to pick first. So we'll talk about a little bit later where you think that these guys are going to go that are in the top 10 if they even join this league. We still don't know exactly who's in and who's out. But even better, the Moody Center, which was recently closed so that they could renovate it, will be ready in time for these events later this summer. So that'll be cool for the city downtown. Up next, Calyn's favorite team, the Carolina Chaos. They're going to be based in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And, it's interesting. They're going to be owned by the league. So they're going to be owned by the PBR, but they're going to be operated by Richard Childress Racing. So again, we have a major league sport, if you will, a NASCAR race car team is going to be managing this PBR team. And they're actually going to be competing in North Carolina's or Wake Forest's Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum home, which is where, of course, the Demon Deacons men's and women's basketball teams compete. And it's pretty interesting. What do you think about that? I mean, the basketball season's over, bull riding comes in. Kind of a cool place to compete, don't you think?
I agree. I mean, I know Carolinas are pretty cool. I know the fan base is there for obviously their sports teams is huge. And I think whenever you said it's my favorite team, it was a slight oversight, but I think that it's going to be huge for that to bring in fans from that area of the country. I think it's great to just spread it across the globe. And I think that obviously you said that they're going to be owned by a league, but ran by something around the area. And I think it's cool that other sports teams and big figures, even like Egon Durban, who's very wealthy and has his money in a lot of different places, can see the potential in this. And I think that's what's great.
Yeah. So specifically Austin Dillon, who is a race car driver and drives the number 3 Chevy, he's actually going to be the guy managing the team, the general manager, if you will. He's not going to coach. We'll talk about the coaches here in a minute, but pretty interesting. I feel like he's got to have a following, obviously, as a NASCAR driver, and one of the popular ones who's won quite a few times. He's going to bring a lot of new people to the sport, and that'll be cool to see. But let's move on to the Kansas City Outlaws. They're going to be based in the Missouri side of Kansas City, and they're owned by Pulley Outlaws LLC. That's actually the LLC that Phil Pulley is going to create for the team. And he is the founder of Bad Boy Mowers, which is one of the PBR's longtime sponsors, along with the popular snack brand Outlaw Snacks. So, I'm sure what that means is that there's going to be a lot of potato chips, Outlaw potato chips, probably sold at the events when they go to Kansas City. Have you ever ridden a Bad Boy mower? I don't think I have.
I don't think I have. I don't think we've crossed paths.
Yeah, might be time to trade in the old John Deere zero turn that Dad's been putting us on and hop on one of these Bad Boy mowers. But interesting that Kansas City has a team, but then also up next, Missouri Thunder have a team, and they're going to be in Ridgedale, Missouri. Do you know where Ridgedale, Missouri is?
That's got to be somewhere near Bass Pro. Or
maybe
shops.
That would be a good guess, because they are going to be owned by the owner of the Bass Pro Shops legacy, the man, the myth, the legend himself, which is Johnny Morris. And I'm curious, I gotta say, because Ridgedale, Missouri is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It is just south of Branson, so I guess there's going to be a lot of movement there. It's right on the line between Missouri and Arkansas, and it's near Table Rock Lake and that Branson area. So apparently he's got a new development that's moving into the area. I guess it's going to be a pretty big tourist attraction. So we'll have to trust the man who built the pyramids in Memphis, to pull off having this team in Ridgedale. But next up, of course, after the Missouri Thunder, we've got the Nashville Stampede. They're going to be based in Nashville, of course, and owned by Morris Communications Company. So the Morris family has been, of course, in the Western industry for quite a long time. They founded the largest cutting horse fraternity, the Augusta fraternity, east of the Mississippi. And he also helped found the National Barrel Horse Association, and he's also the chief executive officer. So, again, some people with some experience. The last few teams, I guess, are the ones that don't really necessarily have any major league sports experience. I guess the Bass Pro Shops has the Bass Pro Shops bass tournaments, but you know, definitely a little bit of a shying away from that. Next up, of course, Oklahoma Freedom. Where are they going to be based, Calyn?
Right in the heart of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and who's their owner?
Bob Funk Jr.
Well, he's going to be managing them, but the league's actually going to own this team too. So, Bob Funk Jr., if everyone knows Express Employment, of course, you might have seen the Billy Etbauer, Cord McCoy. A lot of guys have ridden for Express over the years, and they've been a big sponsor of not only rodeo in Oklahoma, but also the Funk was instrumental in bringing Oklahoma City Energy, which is a soccer team, to Oklahoma. And, they're going to be competing downtown. What's the new name of the stadium downtown?
The Paycom Center.
Yeah, so the Paycom Center, which used to be Ford Arena and then Chesapeake Energy Arena, is now the Paycom Center. So they're going to be down there. They just opened the brand new Omni Convention Center. It's going to be a great place to catch a competition, I think. But, this is the part of the show I'm really most looking forward to. I think it's time that we power rank the logos. So we'll give you guys all a couple minutes to look it up. You can go to the PBR's Instagram or just Google it to look at these logos. But there's some real winners and there's some real duds. So I guess we'll go back up to the top and start with the Ariat Texas Rattlers. What do you think of the Rattlers logo?
I'm a big fan. I really am. I like the kind of the Western feel. I take a lot of consideration in like the Western feel. Some of these teams don't have like anything to do with country with their logos. I know they might have a case for it, but I like the Rattlers. I really do. I think it's pretty cool. Logo
Yeah,
and all that
so
stuff.
we got to see pictures the other day of their uniforms, right? And I haven't seen any others, but of course, Ariat being a clothing brand, they were probably a little bit easier to get the jump on this. And they've got the Rattler, the rattlesnake skin on the chaps and on the shoulders of the vest. And I think it's just, it's a good theme. It's a good idea. We'll definitely be putting them near the top. Next up is the Arizona Ridge Riders. I got to admit, cool logo, very minimalist, just a couple R's. You might think that they're trying to like sell you stock or something along those lines because it is a little vague. There's nothing necessarily country about it. What do you think?
No, I agree. I like the name. I really do. I mean, the double R's, as you said, minimalistic, but yeah, no, I like the Ridge Riders name. I think it's pretty cool. It's definitely new. You really don't see that very much, but I think it's a good name. I like it. And the logo, it's just simple. I like it.
Yeah, well, they definitely didn't try and take any risks and put themselves at the bottom, which we'll be talking about here in a bit. But now we're moving on to what I think is definitely my favorite logo, and that's the Austin Gamblers. I was telling you the other day when this came out, this is the coolest logo. It's got the green in it, which is the city of Austin's colors. Austin FC has green, and I think that the incorporation of the aces and eights in the logo, which is the dead man's hand, that's what Wild Bill Hickok had when he got murdered in Deadwood. It's cool. It's got some history to it. You do kind of have to knock them a couple points considering that gambling is illegal in the state of Texas. I mean, it seems like a bit of an oversight that you can't even gamble in Austin. But, outside of that, I think it's a sweet logo. What about you?
When you hit the nail right in the head, the Gamblers, it's a cool name. I mean, I put them near the top mainly because of that backstory. The backstory is really cool. I mean, they got a reason for it. I mean, a lot of the teams in the league haven't really come out of the story yet. I imagine that'll be a developing part of like where these teams originated names, but I like it. I like it. It's pretty cool.
All right. Well, describe to us why Carolina Chaos is your favorite team and why they have the best logo.
And this is where I like to get. I know I've said that I really like the last three, but this one, we talked a little bit. It feels like we could have made this logo. It feels like that
this logo was made through Microsoft Word, but the chaos, I just don't see how it relates to country. I mean, the name is I don't know, it doesn't really didn't scratch surface the top, even like near the top for me. But I'm glad Carolina has a team at least.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to me, their logo honestly looks like a knockoff energy drink that you would get at 7-Eleven.
I can't agree more.
Or we could go even darker and say that it's like some weird knockoff, like non tobacco like dip can. Like that's what they're going for. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Like you said, it has really nothing to do with the Western way of life. I mean, yeah, I guess life is chaotic, but swing and a miss. So let's hope they get their act together. Oh man, we're going 0 for 2 on these next couple. Kansas City Outlaws.
A little rough patch. Now you hit I love what you said about the chaos being like an energy drink deal, but this one, I know I said it already, but I could have made this on my phone with like a Snapchat filter, this logo, but maybe they'll come out with something later. But the Outlaws, I like the name. I do. I think it fits the Western way of life, but the logo is as you said, swing and a miss.
Yeah, Catherine said that the Outlaws is definitely her favorite name of all of them. I think Ridge Riders is probably the coolest name. Gamblers is a quick second, but Outlaws, it's classic, it's cool. But when it comes to the logo, I mean, do you remember sometimes you would see those kiosks in the mall and they would have those shirts that were like, my husband is a welder who was born in February and has blue hair, and you better not fight me. Like that that came in this font. Like that was the font on this.
Too many words for sure. You're like, I'm not gonna read this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna read it. The font is tough to read anyway. And on top of that, I mean, outlaw snacks. I mean, come on, man. What are we doing here? Is this gonna be like the Reggie bar? When Reggie Jackson had his own candy bar for a little while, he's trying to be Babe Ruth. I mean, I just don't know about this. But up next, the Missouri Thunder. Here's my deal about the Missouri Thunder. They're owned, of course, by Johnny Morris, so they got Bass Pro Shops sponsoring them. They have the Bass Pro Shops logo at the top of it, and I just can't stop thinking about all the hipsters who are wearing Bass Pro Shop hats now. Like your your team logo is like basically a hipster. It's wearing a Bass Pro Shops hat. Like all I can think of is these like small little, college kids that are running around with a Bass Pro Shop hat on top of their, $300 Yeezys and designer jeans, man. I mean, it's funny.
Maybe that's what he was going for, but we're going through a little bit of a rough patch right here, in my opinion. It's just these last three. I mean, the Thunder, I mean, we have a team in Oklahoma City called the Thunder, obviously, when we think about it all the time, but
yeah, and they also have never really had much luck getting a logo together.
Yeah, their logos are very bad in my opinion, but maybe one day we'll get a good one. So yeah, the Thunder, I feel like I've already seen this logo on kids' hats at school I go to. Like I feel like they already have this hat and all that stuff. I can already see it. And then you hit it right in the head. I mean, the Longhorn on the front kind of throws like Chicago Bulls and the Thunder if you just put like a logo together.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, but kind of in the same line as that is the Nashville Stampede. You don't really like it. You think, I talked to you, maybe they could have gone with the name like the Troubadours. I thought it would have been sick if they were the Rhinestone Cowboys, get a little Glenn Campbell going. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the logo. I think it's kind of cool, actually. So, it's definitely going to beat out the chaos and the Outlaws. But, it reminds me of like the Houston Texans logo, which is a lame logo.
No, I agree. But as you said, like the name, I've always just liked names coming from like the city. I mean, we got Oklahoma City Thunder, or like I'm at the Oklahoma Sooners, and that just refers to the land run, all the people that left too early. Like, I think that's cool. Then there's Oklahoma State Cowboys. I think just giving examples from my state. But I mean, obviously, like the Troubadours would have been dope. But as you said, like the logo, that's sweet. I like the logo. But I mean, it's a 50-50 split on this one.
Yeah, so that leads to our last one, Oklahoma Freedom. I mean, I guess you technically can't say anything bad about it because we don't hate America. So, you know, throw some respect on the name, but what do you think?
I think it was a very safe choice. I think it was as safe as you could have possibly gone. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
You know what? When you're at one of these competitions, you're not gonna find very many people who are out there like, I hate the freedom. You know, like it's just
it doesn't roll off the tongue right saying that.
yeah, you're like, oh man, I can't say that. So yeah, I agree. You know, it's like, man, it's just hard to critique, but it's hard to, you know, commend either. So I think we're just gonna throw them right in the middle of the pack. So let's say what we go number one, the Gamblers.
I agree. I think they check all the boxes for sure.
Then the Rattlers.
Would you go with the Rattlers at 2 or the Ridge Riders? Do you think the logo knocks them down?
Yeah, I think you got to put the Ridge Riders one below the Rattlers, just because I mean the Rattlers are gonna have the full like creative department of Ariat behind them. I mean they're gonna come out with some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think their merch is going to be really cool. I think you can't fault them on. I mean, it's hard to beat that. I mean, obviously the Gamblers have the cool name and logo, but Ariat's going to do some cool stuff for them. And I mean, the name, I like it, but I mean, I think it's a close. I mean, I think you're probably right. It edges it out, but the Ridge Riders, it's close. I think it's close.
Yeah. Okay. We'll put the Ridge Riders third. Man, it's a real race to the bottom here now. Let's put Stampede in fourth.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we'll put Freedom fifth.
Yeah, with the Freedom, like they got, what do you think that is, like an eagle or a hawk as their deal? It's like an American flag on an eagle. I mean, this is 100 times better than Oklahoma State Thunder's logo, and it's not even close. But the name is just, it's just safe. I mean, they went safe. It feels like they're going to be sponsored by Under Armour with this look. That's just what it feels to me. But it just looks like an Under Armour deal. But I think it's fifth for sure.
Okay, so again, we're in a race to the bottom here now. Who deserves to be the best of the worst here? Are we gonna put the? I mean the Missouri Thunder's not that bad. We'll put them there.
No, I was gonna say they have to be 6. I mean, they got the. I mean, that's a simple logo. They actually tried for a logo. The other two are just Microsoft Word or like clip art names they just threw out there. So,
I mean, I'm gonna have to give the next slot to the Outlaws, and it's not because I think that they deserve it, but I mean, the fact that there's already an Outlaw Snacks shows that this logo has worked for some reason, because they're selling stuff out there with this logo on it. So
the only thing I would say is that the Chaos lettering looks cooler than the Outlaws, but I mean, it's just the Chaos is just tough to look over all they've done just in this small period of time.
Yeah, well, you know, when you own a NASCAR team, you don't really like focus on the logo, right? Like you just throw sponsors all over it. So maybe the Chaos, the true Chaos, will be the number of sponsors that they get on their uniforms.
Yeah, they could hope, and we could hope too. I want this thing to blow up and be big, and I hope they're right at the forefront.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be great when it's the Carolina Chaos, brought to you by Piggly Wiggly.
Wouldn't it be a shame if the Carolina Chaos was competing for a championship against the Outlaws? That would be
that'd be brutal. But you know, stranger things have happened. Oh man. Well, you know, let's talk a little bit more about this. So there's gonna be a pretty generous payout, but I think it's one that's reasonable. It's not gonna break the bank. I mean, like one thing that we talked about, you know, with XFL, right? If anybody followed the XFL, it had two major downsides and two things that led to it falling apart. One of them was out of its hands, obviously COVID, right? I mean, they just kind of got, a poor draw, and they weren't able to keep the league going because COVID broke out, like week 5 of the season?
Something like that. It was not deep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that just makes it tough to do anything. But also, we feel like they overextended themselves, right? I mean, the PBR is putting a solid, $6 million prize purse into this. So, not small money, but definitely not something that's going to break the bank of some of the names that we just listed. So, basically what they said was that 6 of the 8 teams are going to be awarded to the ownership groups, and then of course the 2 teams that are held by the league. So team sanctions will sell for about $3 million. So each of these teams is putting up $3 million, which again means that a $6 million prize purse, not that much money. The markets and owners will be announced in January. Of course, we already knew that. Here's the interesting thing. PBR CEO Sean Gleason said, "It is a challenge to create a sports league from nothing. The good news is that in the 27 years of league operations that have taught us about the venues and markets and everything we already know, that conducting them as part of a team series with a franchise model will take a little bit of work, but we've been able to use the years we have of solid experience running the PBR to solve a lot of those problems." So, the interesting thing to me, obviously, they're only going to compete in each of these cities one time, right? So they don't have to worry about replication in a city, trying to get crowds back into the same city week after week after week. I mean, this is going to be exactly like how the PBR is now. They show up for a weekend, sell out that town, and move on, right? So that's another part of the thing of why I think, and Calyn, we've talked about it, that I think that this will be successful, is because it's not really straying too far from the model they already have, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, obviously, it's going to be tough to go switch from just an individual sport to a team sport, but I think that's also going to be a huge plus because these riders don't have to worry about marketability and trying to carry the PBR. Like, these teams can do that. And as you said, like, these cities are going to rally behind their guys, and it doesn't matter. Like, they have pride for their city. It doesn't matter. Like, obviously, you go to PBR now and you're like, oh, that guy's from Oklahoma. That guy's from Oklahoma. Like, I'm a root for them. But now you have your own team and you're excited for them. So that's how I view it. But I mean, and as you said, I mean, they just have to pack it out for one weekend, and that's not hard to do. And I think fans are going to love it more and more, and it's just going to get bigger.
And they're going to have a huge incentive. It says that the host team is going to get a 50-50 revenue split with the league. So, I mean, when the show comes to Oklahoma City, I'm sure Bob Funk and his group are going to be pushing hard, to get butts and seats, because that's going to be a big weekend for making some money. So
if you're in Oklahoma City and that weekend's coming up, I imagine you'll hear a lot about it.
For sure. And, like you said, again, as somebody who likes golf, there's been a lot of talk about a potential golf league with teams. And, the talking heads in golf, if you will, they say the most boring part of a golf weekend is that there might be 3 guys that you really don't want to win the tournament, that you don't want to win. But the 40 other guys that are out there, you're just hoping that they, do a good job, and whoever wins, everyone's excited for. It's like there's no like agony unless one of those 3 guys you really don't want to win wins it. I mean, this thing, when you change it from a individual sport to a one-on-one, all of a sudden there's rivalries. There's person against person. In, again, golf, the Ryder Cup, USA versus Europe, even the PBR, they've had different competitions between countries, and it really just, it amps up the level of competition, because now you are competing for something bigger than yourself, and you're competing for something that brings people in. Whenever we talked about this, whenever, Rory McIlroy wins a golf tournament, you say, oh, Rory McIlroy won that golf tournament. Whenever the Texas A&M Aggies win a football game, you're darn sure I say, oh, we won that football game. I'm part of the team, man. I mean, I spent money at A&M. I bought tickets to the game, all these things. We won the game. That's my team. I'm a Texas taxpayer. Like, I pay for these kids to play. Like, we won. And so there's just a little bit of pride in a team that you don't get from an individual, don't you think?
No, I agree for sure. I mean, when the Oklahoma City Thunder came here at the start, I know I sound like a Oklahoma sports fan homer, but it's just what I can base off of. When they first came here, they were terrible, but we packed that stadium, packed that arena, and cheered loud. Like, they had some tough years to start, but hey, we loved our team, and they grew something big, and we had some great years, and now we're trying to rebuild, but we still love that team. We still follow it and hope they win. But I agree. Like you say, it's our team, and we win. We beat the Austin Gamblers. We're going to be like, oh, just like the Sooners fans are like, oh, just like in college football. So it's going to be like that. And I imagine when the Gamblers beat Oklahoma, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be big. You're going to add other sports into it, which is going to be cool.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think it'll be interesting. One of the other cool parts about this is that, we've got coaches announced for 6 of the teams. And these are some legendary bull riders. I mean, not only are they legendary bull riders, but a lot of them have ties to the cities where the teams that they coached are at. So the Ariat Texas Rattlers are going to have Cody Lambert, who, of course, is from Bowie, Texas, and is just one of the best bull riders of all time. And he also, was the 1996 PBR Ring of Honor inductee, and rode Saddle Broncs as well. And so it's just cool to see guys like that. We'll talk about Carolina Chaos. They got Jerome Davis, who was PRCA champion bull rider in the 90s as well. And one of my favorite bull riders of all time, J.W. Hart, he's the Kansas City Outlaws coach, and he was Rookie of the Year in 94, World Finals event winner in 2002, 2004 tour champion, and they called him the original Iron Man. Just there's a lot of guys like this that are pretty exciting. Over in Missouri for the Thunder, you're going to have both Luke Snyder and Ross Coleman. I mean, 25 PBR world titles between them. That's a quarter of a century with the titles right there. So I think that they're getting big guys for this, man. I mean, you're bringing in big names. You got successful guys as the owners of these teams. Nashville Stampede's going to have Justin McBride, another, fan favorite. He has 8 single season event wins to his record. And, he's a 2009 Hall of Fame inductee. But of course, over in the Oklahoma City Freedom, you got Cord Mccoy. He's another one of the great bull riders. He appeared at the World Finals 6 times. If you remember, Calyn, he was on Amazing Race with his brother, and they really showed off the Western way of life well in that. And he's kind of become a spokesman for the state of Oklahoma. I believe his daughter is actually named Tulsa. So, I mean, dude loves Oklahoma.
Good thing for us, man.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, one thing that we don't know yet, and maybe it's out there, I haven't seen anything about it yet, though, is, what do you think every rider that's in the PBR is going to have to put themselves up for this draft? Is this going to be kind of like NFL or MLB? I mean, like, this is the way you get in, or do you think that, certain guys are going to try and stay out of it? I mean, big names, the JB Moonies of the world, are they going to put themselves up for this draft? Do you think they're going to be team players?
I could see it, but I mean, you see guys like that who they're like, I make enough money as it is. like individually. So I'm just going to see how it plays out. But at the same time, you got these big names coming to coach, and I don't think they would join it if they didn't think it was going to be big. I don't think the PBR would be putting this on if they didn't think it was going to be the next great thing to put them up in the realm of like just huge marketability without these other like big major sports. So I think it could be a good thing, and I think they will join. Like eventually, I think you're going to get the big names. I think a lot of PBR guys will join, but I also think we're going to try and go for the younger crowd and like think about the future. They're going to get guys that are on the rise, and I think that's going to be huge. And I think that's going to be a big thing with these, like the practice riders you're talking about. I think it could be like a minor league type of deal, like where guys, not minor league, but like, yeah, I kind of like it where they can just like work out and gain some experience from like the greats like JB Mooney. So I think they will. In my opinion, I think they do.
You know, one thing that people talk about with rodeo in general is that not necessarily as much with the PBR anymore, but with rodeo, it's a lot like golf. There's not very many sports left, specifically professional sports, where you got to pay an entry fee to get in, right? I mean, no, there's no NFL players paying anything, to play on Sunday. So what that does is it makes it a lot harder for someone to maintain a professional career without some type of outside money or whatnot. So it would be interesting if they could turn the PBR teams into almost, a place for these young guys, like you said, to work on getting better and perfecting their trade and whatnot, and kind of getting a salary, if you will. There's no talk right now specifically about what those salaries look like. Of course, each team had to put up $3 million, and of course they're gonna try and incentivize these guys to come to their team. But it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, because I think this could be a really good thing for the development of future bull riders. And obviously this is an international sport. Brazil, Australia, countries like that have huge stories, and histories with the sport.